Beruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis, starting with Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, 4 lines from the bottom. Our Mishnah had stated when it comes to an army encampment, there are certain kulos. For example, the Mishnah says that the army encampment, if they were to take wood that would belong even to a person, a private person, it would not be considered to be gezel. Also, in regard to washing one's hands before a bread meal, they are excluded. They are permitted not to wash their hands. When it comes to demai, that produce, that tavua or peiros that was acquired by an am haaretz, where we're choishes normally that the am haaretz did not take meisters out for it, and therefore one person who does acquire it from that am haaretz must take meister. Here we say they're absolved. They don't have to take meister from the demai. And finally, the Mishnah states that in regards to Erev Chatzeros, when a person wants to carry from either a bias to a chatzer, or vice versa, or even a bias to a bias, normally you would require the Rabbanan to make a Erev Chatzeros to combine the bias and the chatzer, the chatzer, but they are permitted to then carry and metalta from one bias to the chatzer and vice versa, even without an Erev Chatzeros. The Brisa brought an opinion of Rabbi Yehuda ben Taima. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda ben Taima oimer af choinin bekol mokom. Even the encampment, the army encampment, can then encamp wherever they would like, even on private property. Uve mokom sheneherogim sham nikborim. And in the place where they are killed, they can be buried, even if that's private property. Says the Gemara on the latter din of Rabbi Yehuda ben Taima, Pshita, meis mitzvahu, umeis mitzvah koine mekoimoi. It's pashit that a person who was killed wherever that place is, he's koine mekoimoi, and he'll be able to then be buried there. In fact, that's one of the takonas that Yoshua ben Nun made, and therefore it's not unique to an army encampment. It's true with any person, any Bar Yisrael has such a zechus. If he were to then die in a certain place, then he's koine mekoimoi. Says the Gemara to answer lo tzricha, afal gav di'is le koivrin. Even though there are koivrin, that means even though he has yarshin, he has people who are going to be koiver him, nonetheless, in the army encampment, he will be koine that mokoim, and he'll be able to then be buried in that place. Whereas in a normal situation, if he has yarshin to be burying him, then he's not considered to be meis mitzvah to then be buried in that place that he died. The Tanya, for it states in the Brisa, Ezu meis mitzvah, kol she'ein loy koivrin. Who's considered to be a meis mitzvah? All do not have yarshim who will be koiver him to then take care of the kavura. If a person, let's say before he dies, were to call out to his yarshim, to those family members, to then help him, and they are able to answer him, meaning they're in the vicinity, to be metapel with him, then it's not considered to be a meis mitzvah. Says the Gemara, meis mitzvah kana makayma. Ask the Gemara, that which we stated before, that a meis mitzvah is kana makayma, the Gemara questions that. V'hatanya, hamoitze meis mutal besartiyo mifaneyo liyamin hasartiyo l'smol hasartiyo. If there's a meis mitzvah on the public road, so it says over here in the Brisa that we will then mefane him, we will take the mace and put him either to the right or to the left side of the road. The Brisa continues, Sode bur v'sdei near, mefane l'sdei bur. If you have a field that is uncultivated, or a field that was plowed, meaning on one side of the road is a sdei bur, an uncultivated field, whereas on the other side of the road is a field that was plowed. So it states over here in the Brisa, then you mefane the mace to the uncultivated field, because it's less costly. Sdei near v'sdei zera mefane l'sdei near. If you have on one side of the road a field that was plowed and the other field on the other side was sowed, then mefane to the stay near. Then move the body to the field that was plowed. Hayu shtein neiros, shtein zroyos, shtein burois, mifanei lekol ruach sheyirtze. The end of the brisa concludes that if you have on both sides either a field that was plowed or a field that was sowed or a field that was uncultivated, then you can go ahead and move the mace which way you want. For now we're left with a question. If you're telling me that mace mitzvah is something that is buried in that place, he's koine mekoimoi. So here we see that we're mafane, we move the mace. Answers the Gemara, Omar Bibi Hocha b'meis mutal ala meitzar askinan. Here we're talking about a mace that was lying on the entire width of the road, whereby if anybody who is going to then go over the mace, it'll be an oil, he'll then become tamei. And therefore either a kohen or somebody who wants to maintain his tahara will have a problem. So therefore the din is mifaneu lekol ruach sheyirtze. Once you can go ahead and move him, so therefore, it says, once it's permitted to move him from the meitzar, from the boundaries, therefore you can also move him whichever way you want. So therefore, that's what we're talking about over here in this brisa. We're talking about where he's lying in such a situation where in order to then take away the problem that he'll be metame als oihel, thereby we can move him. And therefore the brisa states, how will we move him? Which area, which side of the road do we move him to, which field? And once we can move him in any which way which we would want. The Gemara now quotes another patur for the army encampment, paturin merichitzas yodayim. They're patur from washing their hands. Says the Gemara, Amar Abaye, lo shonu elamayim rishonim. This is talking about being patur from washing their hands before a bread meal. Aval mayim achroinim choiva. But in terms of after the su'udah, that is a choiva, that they don't have a patur not to wash their hands. Rav Chia bar Ashi, mibnei ma omru mayim achroinim choiva. Why do they say mayim achroinim is a choiva? Mibnei shemelach stoimis yesh shemasameh es ha'einayim. Because the melach stoimis, the salt that is on the fingers, or on the hands after a meal, that can blind a person. He says we find even a little bit, a kurta, in a large amount of a kura, 30 saw. We're talking about a very small amount, and still it's dangerous, where a person has to wash mayim achroinim. Rav Ashi, he asked Rav Ashi, kayil milcha mai. If a person just merely measures salt, does he have to wash his hands afterwards? Omar lei halomi boy, meaning it's poshet kol shekain. It's not even a question. Kol shekain, one would have to wash his hands after measuring salt. Another patur that the Mishnah had brought is that the army encampment does not have to then separate demai. Says the Gemara, disnan ma'achilin es ha'anim demai ves achsanya demai. We can feed the demai to anim, and we can also feed the army members demai. Rav Huna Tana, it was taught that there's actually a machlokes about this, not accepted by everybody. Beis Shammai omrim ein ma'achilin es ha'anim demai ve'es achsanya demai. Beis Shammai is of the opinion, do not feed neither the anim nor the achsanya, the army demai. Beis Hillel oimrim ma'achilin es ha'anim demai ves achsanya demai. Whereas Beis Hillel, and that's the opinion that we follow, says we do feed the anim as well as the achsanya demai. The fourth and final kula that the Mishnah brings is that the army encampment does not have to make Eruv. Says the Gemara, Amrei de Rebbe Yonai lo shonu ela Eruvei chatzeros, aval eruvei techumin chayovin. That which is talking about this kula is in regards to eruv chatzeros. They don't have to make an eruv chatzeros to then metaltel, again, between a bias or a chatzer or vice versa, or from a bias to a bias. They would not be required to make an eruv chatzeros. However, eruv techumin, to go beyond 2,000 amos, that they would be obligated to make. Detani Rabbi Chia loikin alei ruve techumin dvar Torah. Rabbi Chia taught that midiaraisa, a person gets malchus for going outside of the tchum. So we find, according to this opinion, it's a machloikis amongst the Tanoim. This is the opinion of Rabbi Akiva that says that Chum is the Araisa. Ask the Gemara, Maskif le Rav Yonason v'chi loikin alav shebe'al. Would a person get malchus for a lav of al? After all, it says in the pasuk al yetze ish mimekoymoi, and therefore, does he get malchus for that? Maskif le Rav Acha bar Yaakov elameata d'chsiv al tifnu el ha'ovois vel ha'idoinim hochanam yiloylaki. Are you going to say that a person who turns to the sorcery, to the oivos and the idoinim, he will not get malchus? There also says the word al tifnu, and there we know he'll get malchus. In fact, the Gemara tells us in other places that the words pen, yishomer, and al are loisases. So of course he'll get malchus like any other lav in the Torah that doesn't have a specific punishment that carries with it. So he'll get malchus over here by tchum as well. So Gemara says no. You misunderstood. This is a lav that is an azharas misas bezin, because we say from this lav al yetze ish mimekoymoi, we make a drasha al yetze ish mimekoymoi, teaching us that one cannot make a hotzah, a transferring from one reshus to another reshus. Therefore, if he would do that, he'll be chayiv chatos, or if he does it b'mezi with hasra, he'll be chayiv skila. So therefore, it's an la shenitan lazaras miza bezdin, and a la shenitan lazaras miza bezdin. Even if you're going to then give hasra, a warning for the malchus, he will not get malchus. So that's what he was asking before. Says the Gemara, Omer of Ashi, Miksiv al yoitzi. Does it say in the pasuk al yoitzi, do not transfer one reshus to another reshus? It says ella. It says al yetze ksiv, mean do not go out, each person from his place. In other words, befeirush, it states in terms of not going out tchumim. It's only a drasha that says you cannot transfer one place to another place. So we cannot say that this is a lav shenitan lazaras mizas bezdin from a drasha when the befeirush lav is referring to tchumin. Hadron aloch mavui. The second parak begins with the concept of pasin beirois. That means that when the Olei Regalim were then to travel up to Yerushalayim, the Chacham gave them a special kula that enabled them to then draw water from the well. Now the well has the dimensions of at least 4 by 4 tfachim and a asara tfachim deep. So it's the dimensions of Rishus HaYachid. Where they're situated outside is either Rishus HaRabim or a Carmelis. In both cases, it would be also to draw water from the well outside. So therefore, the Chacham made a special kula enabling the Olei Regalim to then make makeshift type of walls. Even though there's going to be great spaces between the walls themselves, which is really parutz meruba al ha'oimed, which would normally be a problem. Over here, there's a special heter. So the Mishnah describes over here how this works. Oisin pasin la beirois arba diumdin nira kishmoine diver Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says we take 4 on the 4 corners. We take what's called pasin. We take them as thin, narrow planks of wood, and we make them on every corner like a reish. On every corner there's a reish. And since it's doubled, it's diumdin, so it's really 4 corners with a doubled, like a reish, whereby it's times 2, it's 8, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Meir oimer shmoine niren kishnei masar. Rabbi Meir says that it's really 8 that really becomes 12. In other words, he's saying that the 8 included with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda has an additional 4 because he says there's also 1 in the middle of every side. So therefore the 8 and the 4 gives you a total of 12 pasin. Arba diyumdin, the 4 that are doubled as a reish. Ve'arba pshutin, and the 4 that are pshutin that are going to be on every side in the middle. Goivon asar tfachim. These walls are at least asar tfachim because a minimum of a mechitza is 10 tfachim. Veroichvan shisha, and their width is 6 tfachim, which is 1 amma. So the diumdin, which is doubled, we said, would be 1 amma and 1 amma on every corner. And according to Rabbi Meir, be 1 amma of pas on every side as well. The oivyan koshehu, and the thickness is a negligible amount, a koshehu. Ubeineim kimloish shtei rivkois shel sholosh bakar. Di Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir says the measurement of the width of these walls are going to be the measurement of two sets of cows, each one 3 each, and the measurement is that each cow is 1 2/3 width. So you have 6 of them, 3 teams of 3, comes out to be 6 times 1 2/3, a total of 10 amos wide. According to this opinion of Rabbi Meir, it's 10 amos wide is the size of the width of the walls. Rabbi Yehuda Oimer shel arba. Rabbi Yehuda says it's larger. You can have 2 teams of 4 cows together, and that will be 8 times 1 2/3. A total of 13 1/3 is the width of each wall. The Mishnah goes on to explain keshuros v'lo mutaros. They're going to be tied. These teams of 3 cows are going to be tied together, and it's not going to be loose. It'll be tight. In other words, that'll be a chumrah in terms of the measurement. On the other hand, achas nichneses v'achas yotzes. It's not going to be all 6. It'll be 3 and 3 that are walking in, but rather it'll be 3 that are walking in with 3 coming out, a little bit larger, a little bit like a tefach soicha kois. It'll be larger type of amount. But in total, again, according to Rabbi Meir, it'll be 10 amos. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it'll be 13 1/3 amma. Mutter lahakriv, says the Mishnah, lebe'er. It's permissible to bring the walls in, providing that the para can put his head and the majority of his body and drink. He'll have enough space. And the concern is if it's not enough space, then maybe the person who's drawing the water for that para will then have to then go out, or he accidentally might go out of the walls, and he'll be chayiv, or either midiraisa or midirabanan from hotzah. So again, we have these walls that are situated in a way that we can draw water to then give water to the animals. And so therefore the width of the walls is based on either 2 teams of 3 or 2 teams of 4 paros. The Mishnah goes on to say, mutar laharchik kol shehu ubilvad sheyarbe bepasim. On top of Yud Ches Amud Aleph, the Mishnah goes on to say that it's permissible to distance yourself, meaning make the walls even further apart. However, it's providing that you make the pasim that we had mentioned before, the same space in between. So even if you're going to go far away and make there a larger space in the middle, but you have to be consistent. With Rabbi Meir, it has to be at least 10 amos apart, where you can put each pas 10 amos apart. Or according to Rabbi Meir, 13 1/3 amos apart. But you have to make sure that there's going to be at least a pas in that amount of space. So even if you're going to widen again the area of the entire enclosement, but you have to make sure that that the wall is not spread out beyond either 10 amos or 13 1/3 amos. The Mishnah goes on to say, Rabbi Yehuda Oimer, ad beis sosayim, until the amount can only be a maximum that you're enclosing of beis sosayim, which we said is 5,000 amos. It's 50 by 100 amos, 5,000 amos squared. Amru loy, they say to Rabbi Yehuda, why do you have to limit it to a beis sosayim? Loy amru beis sosayim ella legino lekarpef. In other words, the whole concept of beis sosayim is by agino karfef. These are places where people do not live and get direct benefit themselves as human beings in these places. They're not for residency. It's for a gina to plant, or karpef is also not for a resident to a person to live inside of it, is to store wood. And therefore, the concern was that if we're going to have a space that's greater than Beis Sosayim, since these places are enclosed and midiaraisa, really there's no problem of being metaltel inside that place, but they were concerned that it has the properties of a Reshus Harabim. So therefore the Chachamim said that we can maximum the space up until Beis Sosayim. Beyond that we cannot go ahead and make such an enclosement to permit being metaltel within such a larger enclosement. Aval, but the Gemara says, the Mishnah says rather, that they asked Rabbi Yehuda, that's by a gina and a karpef. But over here, in regards to drawing water, that's going to benefit people. So therefore, why is it limited to Beis Sosayim? Aval im hayadir, o sahar, o muktzah, o chotzer, afilu beis chameshes kurin, afilu beis asara kurin. If you have places that like a corral, either outside of the city, where they're going to then put animals in a certain enclosement so that they can go ahead and make manure in certain places where they want them to make the manure, or inside the city when they make an enclosement of the animals, where the ro'in, the shepherds, are going to be inside of these enclosements. They'll even sleep there. Or the muktzah, the place where people will store their items inside the chutzner, or the chutzner itself. All of these places do not have a minimum of Beis Sosayim, afilu beis chameshes kurim, even a much larger amount, afilu beis asara kurim. So why over here, when it comes to drawing the water from the well, you limit it to Beis Sosayim? So the Gemara is going to explain Rabbi Yehuda's response. But for now, the Mishnah leaves it as a question that they asked Rabbi Yehuda, that it should be mutter over here as well. The Mishnah concludes, umutter laharchik kol shehu, this is really what was stated before. The same hayra was stated on the top of the Amud, just to then restate the opinion of the Tanakama that it's mutter to go any space out as large as you would want, providing that you make sure that between the pasim is only going to be a maximum of 10 amos according to Rabbi Meir, or 13 1/3 amos according to Rabbi Yehuda.